gonna be harvesting a lot of my peppers, and you can only eat so many peppers a day. So I'm going to actually chop them up and ferment them. Now, one year I fermented some cabbage that we did, and I was surprised at how tasty it was. You know, it was sauerkraut. You would have thought it wouldn't have much in the way of a different flavor of sauerkraut than what you buy in the store, but it definitely was a different taste, and it was delicious. And I think I fermented it in a big jar, you know, I had a big mason jar. And I think I fermented it for about 4 weeks altogether on the counter. And then I put it in the refrigerator for the rest of the year. And then another year I fermented a combination of cauliflower, broccoli, carrots, and radishes in 4 different jars. And that lasted quite a while, because really when you're using fermented foods in your diet, you know, you can do 2 to 4 tablespoons of whatever fermented food you're going to use a day, and that's going to be good. It's going to give you some nice bacteria, and then again, we're going to want to feed the new bacteria that we put in there with fiber. So that's going to come in the form of, for me, it would be my breakfast cereal. My breakfast cereal, or my breakfast anyway, is loaded with fiber. And what I do with that is I do my oatmeal, and if I want a quick oatmeal, I don't even worry about doing the steel cut or boiling it that much. I just use rolled oats, but I don't cook them a long time. I just heat them in the microwave once through for a minute. And I use flaxseed in there. Flaxseed is very good for inflammation if you deal with that. I use a tablespoon of flaxseed, a tablespoon of wheat germ. Some people cannot do wheat, so I wouldn't do that. I would do 2 tablespoons of flax then. And then I also add a tablespoon of chia seeds. I sometimes add some pumpkin seeds, or another one is sunflower seeds. Sometimes I'll put some nuts in there. That breakfast is loaded with fiber for me. And I don't have an up-to-date amount of fiber in that breakfast, but it's got to be a fair amount, because when I do a total for my day, I'm close to, you know, anywhere between 50 and 70 grams of fiber in a day. And that is a lot. In the past, when I was at 15, I thought, how in the world am I ever going to get up to 30? Or how am I going to get up to, you know, 35 or 40? And now it's very easy for me, because I get a lot of fiber in just the basic things that I include in my diet every day. Because I'm not a meat eater, what I normally do is plan that my protein is going to come from the grains and the nuts and seeds, but also from the added fiber. If you add flax or if you add chia seeds, you're going to get some protein from that. You get protein actually from every different plant that you include in your diet. It's just that a fruit or a vegetable might only have 1 or 3 grams of protein, whereas a grain or bean or legume will have more like 7 grams of protein per serving. But by the time you add up everything you've had in your day, you're going to be well above the amount of protein that you need for a day. I figure when I'm not putting meat in there, that each meal has to have either a grain or a legume in it to boost that protein level throughout the day. So for breakfast, it's going to be all those things I just mentioned. The oats have some protein. And then for lunch, it might be some hummus. It might be some whole grain. I have a very heavy grain bread that I can get from one of the stores here in town. But I know there's a really easy recipe for a whole grain loaf. And when I make a loaf of whole grain bread, I know darn well I can only eat maybe 1 of those slices a day. So I will cut that up into slices and freeze it so that I can just take out what I need for a day. So for lunch, I might have something like that. For dinner, last night, I took out something I had made in the past for dinner, just a vegetable lasagna, and added beans to it. So there's there's going to be the heavier protein serving in that food. So lots of vegetables, lots of fiber throughout the day. That's what I want you to be thinking about and planning your meals and days around that. Luckily, I did finally end up being on the live session live today. I will be back here again tomorrow to answer any questions. If anybody thinks of questions afterwards, put them on for a comment or share it with anybody you think it would be helpful to, and we will answer all of those questions even if you didn't see it live. So take care, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.